Welcome to For the Record. I'm Elena LaQuatra. Today, the second and final installment in our series of For the Record episodes focused on the legacy of Pittsburgh's favorite neighbor, Fred Rogers. Last week, our Lily Coleman spoke with the Director of Learning and Education for Fred Rogers Productions. I also began my sit-down interview with David Newell, the man who portrayed Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and John Massalonis of PR from the Heart. John hosts, and David has been a recurring guest on what they call the Neighborly Review's Bookcast, focused on children's books and supporting literacy for children. That bookcast is now celebrating 5 years. Let's go back now to my conversation with David and John. This might be a hard question for the both of you. Can you each tell me your favorite book that you featured over the last 5 years?
Oh my heavens!
I know.
I would. Well, one that comes to mind is a story by Deborah Saraceni. She wrote a children's book called Allie Protects the La Jolla Seals.
Okay.
Living in San Diego, one of the reasons why I do the work that I do, part of my long-term vision is to help create a children's hospice for terminally ill children. And so anytime that I have the opportunity to work with a San Diego-based author, when people travel to San Diego, they connect with the seals and the sea lions and the importance of protecting the oceans, protecting those animals. But we've had the opportunity over the years to interview some incredible authors. When we do the episodes in studio at Point Park University's Center for Media Innovation, we've literally had authors travel from across the country and around the world to join us. Dr. Jim Price, The Adventures of Harold from the Hood series, I know is one that actually comes to mind as well too. Dr. Schaefer Stedron, who wrote a children's book, an amazing one called The Boy and His Brightly Colored Blocks. But one of the cool things, in addition to sharing the stories, seeing that we're very fortunate to have over 30,000 subscribers on the PR from the Heart YouTube channel. So just knowing the fact that we've been able to curate this audience over the years, and word has traveled fast on the program, but just knowing the fact that we're doing this in service. And that's the most important thing. Is I think that one of the things that I learned from Mr. Rogers growing up and even through the course of my adult life is, in many respects, when we focus on the we, the me gets taken care of. And so knowing the fact that when you give back, you help and you support, especially those who are doing their part to fulfill their own missions and their own purposes, such as children's authors, it really is a good feeling, if I may use the words of Fred Rogers.
I remember my favorite book,
okay.
And it was called Mom and Her Big Red Truck.
Okay.
And it was a little boy who loved driving with his mom in her big red truck. And I thought that, because it's usually, you would think, Mom has a truck.
Yeah.
Which I think is wonderful.
That was Allison Paul Klakowitz, I believe. That's Mommy's Big Red Monster Truck.
Okay, that's what it's called.
Yep. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful book because it has a woman and her truck and her son. Yeah. That was my favorite. And it's very whimsical too. It's that's what I like in children's book, is the whimsy. A lot of books, children's book has a lot of whimsy in it, and that's what I like specifically.
I think that there were two other brief ones that actually come to mind. A gentleman by the name of Dr. Bob Archuleta. Okay. He actually wrote a children's book called Christine's Magical Smile. Dr. Bob is the founder of Noah's Children's Hospice and Palliative Care Center in Richmond, Virginia. The story was written in honor of his daughter, Christine, who had actually passed away in the process. He teaches kids about the importance of smiling and how his little girl was reminding all of us the importance of just allowing our inner light to shine through smiling in the process. Such a beautiful book, because if we can just take the time to smile, we're brightening our own day and we're brightening other people's days as well too. And Carrie Hitchcock, The Adventures of Baby Brown Bear. Many people know Carrie for her work as a children's author. They also know her husband, who's also one of the inspirations for the story, Russell Hitchcock, the lead singer of Air Supply. Okay. So the iconic band. So their adventures together has inspired this beautiful series. So again, whether it be celebrities whose books we featured on the program, prominently traditionally published authors or self-published, hybrid published authors, having this platform where all books are seen and felt and heard and honored, and the authors behind those stories, so that kids can allow themselves to express themselves through the love and joy of literacy.
I have to say, I love the names of all these books you guys are talking about. They are, like you said, so whimsical, these names. They're beautiful.
And we'll give you names and you can get them.
Please do. I'm like, I gotta go back and watch this episode of For the Record so I can write these all down and buy them for myself and my daughter.
Because the teddy bear, we're reviewing this tomorrow, right? The teddy bear book, which is we'll tell you about that one too.
Teddy the Bear story for anxiety.
I
yes.
love a good teddy bear story. What do you see for the next 5 years of the book cast?
Well, we're putting out good health for the both of us because, you know, without your health, you can't have the wealth. But just, again, knowing the fact that it's long since been said, and I firmly believe this with the work that I do as a publicist for children's authors, when I immerse myself in children's books, it really keeps you eternally youthful in many respects. So when you're combining that alongside the fact of helping and supporting and being of service as well too. This is one of the most fun things that I've ever done throughout the course of my entire natural adult life. And again, just knowing the fact that in some way, shape, or form to be able to give thanks to David for all the work that he's done, that he's continuing to do in many ways, shapes, and forms. It really is an incredible feeling, and I want to take the time to acknowledge you and your station as well too, because I know that just again in the world in which we live in, there's a lot of I'll use the term interesting things to talk about on air, but knowing the fact that if there's something that we can all gravitate around, such as the importance of taking the time to read to our children and to be able to help them become the best and highest versions of themselves as well too, the fact that you guys are inviting us to talk about the bookcast, we're extraordinarily grateful, and here's to 5 more years plus, David.
But you said, yes, I hope 5 more years plus, but you said read to your children. And I think that is one of the most important things you can do is read to your child. And I'm talking about young children.
Yeah.
It's not so much what you're reading, it's the closeness you have with the child. It's that one-on-one, and the book is an excuse for that closeness. Not an excuse, but it's a connection.
And it's also the bonds that are created
Yeah,
as well
it's
too, and those bonds will last forever.
Absolutely.
So books can create bonds within families, and I think that just keeps us moving with books. I mean, sometimes you take it for granted, books. But I grew up not having television. That I was pre-television. I would listen to the radio and read books. Do you ever hear? And he's never heard of them. But there was a series of books when I was growing up called Uncle Wiggily. You've ever heard of?
I have never heard of Uncle Wiggily. No.
Well, Uncle Wiggily was a rabbit.
Okay.
And that was his. Again, whimsical.
Yes.
But my mother knew that I loved Uncle Wiggily. And she found out where the author lived. He lived in New Jersey. And on a trip to New York, she made an appointment with, his name is Howard R. Garris, and took me to meet him. And I'll never forget that. And I think that just solidified my love of books. Meeting the actual person who wrote the books I was reading all those years, or have been read to also. Then I started to read them when I was growing up. But he also wrote, you might not have heard this either, the Bobbsey Twins. You ever hear the Bobbsey Twins?
I've heard of the Bobbsey Twins.
I think he wrote those too under a different name.
Okay.
But I read those books as a kid over and over and over again.
And your love of literacy was instilled in you at a very young age, and it sounds like your parents were so supportive of your love of reading.
And I think that's where to begin, at a very young age, introducing books. Again, as just reading a book in front of a child.
Absolutely. What message would you give to parents about the book cast, about reading, about literacy? What's that one message you want parents to take away from watching this?
There really is something about reading. I use the term a lifeline in many respects. And again, especially in the world in which we're living, we can feel overwhelmed, we can feel stressed out. There's something inherently beautiful about reading. I always, I call it like a spiritual science experiment. Check in with how you're feeling, check in with how your little ones are feeling, take the time to read that story, and see how you feel afterwards in the process. There's an expression that David and I utilize, actually 2 expressions on the program. Number 1 is to take the time to support the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. Pittsburgh really has a treasure trove of those. The city is very fortunate as well too. And we always share the phrase, thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, because ultimately when we take the time to remind children, as Fred would say, that they're loved, that they're special, we always like to add in that they're whole, they're healthy, they're complete just the way that they are. They can see their own inherent worth, their own inherent value. Reading is that ultimate lifeline that helps to walk the children of the world home. And we're just doing our part to do that in some small way.
I love that. I will say, after reading a book with my daughter, I do feel like a child again. I feel so youthful and just, it gives you a very special feeling, and it brings you back to childhood when you're
And
reading
I
these
think
books.
she'll remember you're reading those books too.
I hope so.
I remember it very well. My mother and father both reading to me.
So special.
And I think that's what got my interest in reading. And then eventually in television, but
Yes. Still ahead on For the Record, looking back and looking forward. Some final thoughts from the men behind the Neighborly Reviews bookcast. Welcome back to For the Record, as I go back now to my conversation with David Newell, the man who portrayed Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and John Massalonis of PR from the Heart. The pair offer some final thoughts about the importance of encouraging children to read. Is there anything else you guys want to add or include?
well, I was just going to say that
Yes.
Fred Rogers was an avid reader. If we would go somewhere, Fred, the first stop he would make would be a bookstore.
Wow.
He would go into the bookstore. He had a stack of books on his nightstand always, and he tried to take his love for reading and deliver it, so to speak, to children.
And also during the course of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, some of my favorite episodes included when LeVar Burton showed up, of course,
Yes.
the iconic host of Reading Rainbow, the
Yes,
beloved
yes.
children's author, who's still doing incredible things even though he's no longer with
Eric
us.
Carle.
Eric Carle as well, too. Of course, viewers can tune into the Neighborly Reviews bookcast by heading on over to the official website for PR from the Heart, prfromtheheart.com, and can subscribe to our official YouTube channel, join the more than 30,000+ members of the PR from the Heart family, as we like to say. And these are what we affectionately refer to as in our own simple way, trolley stops. We take the time to just, enjoy what it is that we're doing through the course of the program. But there are many more episodes to come. And it's great to celebrate the 5-year anniversary celebration of the program while I'm here in Pittsburgh with Dave.
And this is all your idea, starting it, and I'm the guest usually. So I'm the guest representing my love for books on the bookcast. First known as a podcast, but then the bookcast.
That's right.
And a beloved face nationwide
Oh,
that
well-
everybody recognizes and loves, and just seeing you brings us back to childhood.
well,
I will say that.
I'm still there. and my wife is an avid reader too. So reading in our house is quite special.
Still ahead, more on the legacy of Mr. Rogers and the role the WTAE studios had to play in it all. Welcome back to For the Record. If you've been a longtime fan of our show, you know that these past 2 weeks are not the first time actor David Newell has appeared on our show. He also joined us for an interview at the Heinz History Center in early 2025, and he shared a story about the history of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that not many people have heard. The show's broadcast in Pittsburgh actually began right here at WTAE Channel 4.
Well, more than an episode, there was a time that Channel 4 was having some lead up to the holidays. And it was a special holiday month that Channel 4 was having. And Fred, that's where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was first seen in the United States.
And as we look back at the legacy of Fred Rogers, just take a look at some of the ways we've reported on his impact in just the past month and a half or so. Starting with late March, when school districts from across Beaver County convened on Beaver Area Middle School for a night full of speakers talking about the everlasting lessons that Mr. Rogers spoke about in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The event was affectionately called Fred Talks. Organizers tell us that while students were not very familiar with the Latrobe native at the start, they are familiar with the values he represented.
This generation maybe knows Daniel Tiger, but doesn't know Fred as well as some of us do. And we thought it really important for them to touch on some of his fundamentals like self-worth and trust and curiosity.
The Fred Talks came a week after Won't You Be My Neighbor Day on March 20th. That day is meant to remember Mr. Rogers' impact on his birthday. And at the Heinz History Center, Mr. Rogers' legacy will be felt as the building undergoes a major expansion project we've been talking a lot about. The cameras were there late last month as we learned about this expansion that will be 92,000 square feet and 6 stories of museum space with a focus on telling the Pittsburgh story. The space will be designed to include several things like an interactive exhibit on the life of Mr. Rogers.
People are interested in the Pittsburgh story, and I think the more we can do this, the more kids we bring down here, the more families that come down here. It's an anchor tenant in the city of Pittsburgh, and we are happy to support from all levels of government.
The expansion is expected to be completed in 2028. You're watching For the Record, and keep it here because coming up, we'll take a look at a topic that we'll be digging into in the weeks ahead. Welcome back to For the Record. The 4th of July holiday, less than 6 weeks away now. And as it approaches, For the Record will have episodes focused on celebrating 250 years of America. Pittsburgh's Action News 4 reporter Sheldon Ingram recently dug into part of that history, an historic marker indicating George Washington's land holdings on the Montour Trail. Take a look at what we discovered.
So many people use the Montour Trail for recreational purposes, but now they'll get a history lesson with a distinguished marker that'll soon be erected.
It is listed as the longest suburban trail in the United States, 60 miles in length. Members of the Montour Trail Council say 400,000 people use this trail every year. Soon, they will learn that part of the trail runs through a big chunk of land owned by the nation's first president. Brian Sipe is president of the Montour Railroad Historical Society.
The land that we're talking about on this project belonged to George Washington in the late 1700s.
How much land we talking?
6,800 acres.
And this trail runs through those 6,800 acres?
About 2.5 miles of the trail runs across George Washington's former land.
An application was submitted to the William G. Pomeroy Foundation to recognize that piece of land owned by Washington, now running through part of the trail. Here it is, bearing a short historical note for users who used the trail.
What is it going to tell us?
It's going to tell you that George Washington was granted the land by the governor of Virginia at that time. In the colonial days, this area was actually part of colonial Virginia.
Sipe says Washington's former land on the trail is distinguished from other pieces of land he owned.
It's kind of escaped the commercialism that's inherent with other George Washington's properties. There were no mills, there were no hotels, there were no taverns built, there were no real towns. It was just strictly farmland.
That's the bit of history users of the Montour Trail will see about a half-mile north of where the trail intersects with Galati Road.
It's a significant deal that it helps, it promotes the Montour Trail, obviously.
Again, that was Sheldon Ingram reporting. Look for episodes of For the Record focused on celebrating America's 250th coming up next month. And be sure to tune in next week as For the Record gets ready for the start of June, which is Men's Health Month. Medical experts weigh in on the issues affecting men's health and what men need to look out for. And a reminder, if you have any topic you'd like us to address, go ahead and send us an email. That address is news@WTAE.com. You can also rewatch this episode or any of our episodes with the Very Local app on your smartphone, tablet, or smart TV. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week.